The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL, but we are the ones that have encouraged you all along to like and share them on social media and with all your friends and neighbors. Because independent insurance agent Rudy Howard at this time presents the African American Scene, and it's hosted by the one and only Rudy Howard.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. I am always glad to be with you here on a Wednesday night. I hope everybody out there is well. I have to tell you, I just saw a news report about the Dominion lawsuit. And as I've said to you before, I think this is going to be a landmark case. And I know so many of you out there don't believe that it's an issue, but the latest thing was there were 3,600, listen to this now, 3,600 messages to Fox from Dominion telling them that the information they're reporting was inaccurate. And they did not get a single response. Folks, I'm no lawyer, but I know enough about the legal system to tell you they are in trouble. And I think the net effect of what's going to happen is there's going to be a serious doubt about whether you can believe in Fox News, because they don't give you news. They give information that gives them ratings. Well, tonight I'm going to do something a little different. There's so much talk about the legal wranglings of what's happening in the country. I thought tonight I would talk about the Constitution. The Constitution. I'm going to give you a trivia question because I still have some gifts that I could give out. If you can tell me what year Omega Sci-Fi was founded and on what campus, you'll win a gift. Jay and Winnie cannot call and win the gift. Anybody else can call, they can win the gift. Okay, so we're going to talk about the Constitution. The Constitution is made up of three parts: the preamble, the articles, and the amendments. That's the basic construct of the Constitution. Let me read the preamble for you. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure blessings of liberty to ourselves and our property, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Establish justice means make good government and laws. Ensure domestic tranquility means peace in our homes. Provide for the common defense is national security. Promote the national welfare is healthy communities. And security, the blessings of liberty, is freedom. And to ourselves and our property is family and friends. And to ordain and establish, give authority, this Constitution, the supreme law of the land, for the United States of America. That's a pretty dynamic document. Now, let me tell you this. You may not want to hear this, but let me just tell you this. At the time that this Constitution was written, the original intent did not include African Americans or women. At the time, it was written in 1787 and ratified in 1788. In full operation in 1789, there was no intent to provide coverage for people of color because they were considered property and not people. But here is something that you might want to be proud of. The Constitution is the world's longest serving written charter of government. That's pretty impressive. The longest serving written charter of government. Now, as we go through this, I want you to call if you have any questions. That's 340-1590. There was a book I read, and Lord, I just forgot to pull it up so I could get the author. It's called Understanding the Constitution. And that phone number is 340-1590, 340-1590. We will be glad to entertain your comments. The first thing we're going to talk about is the articles of the Constitution. And the articles of the Constitution are very interesting. The articles of the Constitution are an integral part of the Constitution. Now, there are 7 articles of the Constitution and 27 amendments. 7 articles and 27 amendments. Let me go through the articles first. Article 1. The legislative branch is made up of the U.S. Congress, and they make the laws. The legislative branch is made up of Congress, and they make the laws. That's Article 1. Article 2. The executive branch is the president, vice president, and cabinet, and they carry out the laws made up by Congress. So that's Article 2 of the Constitution. Article 3. The judicial branch is the Supreme Court, and it decides cases according to the Constitution. So now we also know that the Supreme Court can decide cases that may not be strictly in the Constitution, but are cases that have previously been decided and have been brought to them for further consideration. Now, Article 3. This is going to be funny. Now, you got to remember how long ago this was written. Soldiers cannot take or live in someone's home. It says Article 3 of the Constitution. Now, you know, that was a long time ago. And so they're saying soldiers can't just take control of somebody's house. Article 4. The government cannot arrest a person or search their property unless there is probable cause. I think that's the search and seizure so often talked about. That's Article 4 of the Constitution. Okay. Article 5. The government must give due process when applying punishment. So the government is responsible for giving due process to people when applying arrest or detention or any violation of the law. Article 6 is the right to a fair and speedy trial. That's Article 6 of the Constitution. Article 7, the right to a jury for civil cases. So you actually have a right for a jury in civil cases before the court. Article 8, the government cannot demand excessive bail or fines or any cruel or unusual punishment. Now I'm going to read that again because this is really important, because this is one of the current debates in our society about bail. Government cannot demand excessive bail or fines or any cruel or unusual punishment. So I guess the big statement there is, what is excessive bail? Is it excessive bail based on just the allegation against someone, or is excessive bail should be considered on a person's personal circumstances? You know, in this country, we have a lot of people that go to jail because they can't afford the bail, and it's not necessarily a large number. And I think we, as people, as of the United States, need to ask ourselves, does that make sense? And let me add this little caveat to it. Not only do you need to ask yourself, does that make sense? You need to ask yourself, do you want your tax dollars spent that way? Because it costs you a lot of money to lock those people up because they can't make bail. And I contend that is not in the financial interests of us in this country. When you have someone who is not guilty of a violent crime, I think if somebody's guilty of a violent crime, yes, there should be high bail, and yes, they should be in jail if they can't afford it. But there's oftentimes people who do bad things and have a lot of money, and it doesn't matter how much bail you put on them, they're still out and about. So in a quiet corner, think about that yourself and tell me what you come up with. Article 9, the Constitution, hold on. Hold on, let me get my paper here. Okay, the Constitution does not include all the rights of people and the state's power. The Constitution does not include all the rights of the people and the state's power. Article 10, any power not given to the federal government belongs to the state. So if the federal government does not have an exclusive power in a situation, it belongs to the state. Now, we're going to go on to a very interesting topic. We're going to look at the amendments. Sorry, I read this thing out of order. Shame on me. Let me go back, because I want to be very specific about this. I jumped ahead to the amendments. Let me go back to the articles. I read the first article. Please forgive me. I had the paper shuffled around here. Article 1, the legislative branch is the U.S. Congress, and it makes the laws. Article 2 is the executive branch, which is the president, vice president, cabinet, and cabinet. And they carry out the laws made by Congress. Article 3, the judicial branch is the Supreme Court and decides cases according to the Constitution. Oh my God, please forgive me. Article 4, states' powers have the right to make and carry out their own laws. States must respect other state laws, okay? That's Article 4. Article 5, amendments. Amendments can be made to the Constitution by 2/3 vote in each house in the Congress and 3/4 vote by the states. That is a very high standard. That's a very high standard. So that's Article 5. So no wonder we haven't had amendments in quite a while, but that is the mountain you have to climb to make amendments. Someday, I hope we make an amendment to get rid of the Electoral College, but that's another story. And Article 7, the last article. Ratification was presented to George Washington on September 17th, 1787. Originally, 12 of the 13 states approved. In July of 1788, the states met again, and the Constitution was approved. So from 1787 to 1788, there was a period where they were working on getting the Constitution approved. And it was finally approved in 1788. So you can see this document goes back a long ways. And the fact that it is the oldest charter of government in the world is something for us to be proud of and something for us to protect. God knows, please protect our Constitution. Now we're going to talk about the amendments. You often hear people talk about the Bill of Rights. So what is the Bill of Rights? The Bill of Rights was adopted on December 15th, 1791, which is made up of the first 10 amendments to the Constitution in a package. Now, what exactly is the Bill of Rights? The Bill of Rights derives from the Magna Carta of 1215, the English Bill of Rights in 1689, and the colonial struggle against the king and parliament, and a gradually broadening concept of equality among American people. Virginia's 1776 Declaration of Rights, drafted chiefly by George Mason, was a notable forerunner. Besides being an axiom of government, the guarantees in the Bill of Rights have binding legal force. Acts of Congress conflict with them may be voided by the U.S. Supreme Court when the question of the constitutionality of such acts arises in litigation. So there we have it. Now, you hear that term, Bill of Rights, Bill of Rights, Bill of Rights. And so what does that mean? And we're going to attempt to give you some idea of what the Bill of Rights are. If you have any questions, again, please, that phone number is 340-1590. I hope you got my correction. I'm so sorry. I had the papers shuffled around wrong. Okay. So the Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments of the Constitution. Let's take a look at what they are. Amendment number 1, freedom of religion and free speech, freedom of the press, and freedom of assembly, and the right to petition the government. Okay. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and the freedom to petition the government. Now, let's talk about freedom of speech for a second. What does that mean? We have this in our Constitution, which is very strong, and I would tell you, typically, the defenders of the freedom of speech win because that is so strong, especially when it comes to newspapers and reporters. But we are not allowed in our freedom of speech to malign other people or cause them harm. That is outside the realm of what freedom of speech is. And we have freedom of religion, which is one of the basic tenets for why this country was founded. They wanted to have freedom of religion, which was not available to them in England. And I hope that you can understand why it's important for us to respect all people's religion, even if you don't particularly agree with it. It's worthy of your respect. And that's about being an American. Amendment number 2, probably the most controversial amendment in the Constitution, the right to have weapons for protection. That's Amendment 2. That's the one that people talk about all the time. I have my Second Amendment rights. Don't take my Second Amendment rights from me. Now, I'm going to add some commentary along the way here. I have no problem with the Second Amendment and your right to have a weapon for protection. I do have a right. I do have objection to you owning an AR-15. I can't imagine why you need to have an AR-15 in the second, because you believe in the Second Amendment. That's not a Second Amendment arms for self-protection.
You know what would happen, Rudy, if you went hunting and shot a rabbit with an AR-15? There'd be nothing left but a couple pieces of fur left.
That's right.
That's it.
That,
You can't eat it. It's gone.
that's right. That's absolutely right. So remembering when the Second Amendment was approved, when the Bill of Rights was approved in 1791, these 10 amendments that were presented in a package for the Bill of Rights. Amendment number 3, soldiers cannot take or take somebody's home. That's 1791. Amendment 4, the government cannot arrest a person or search that property without, unless there is probable cause. Let me plug in my computer here. Okay, so that's the Amendment 4 is the search and seizure part of the Constitution. Amendment 5, the government must give due process when applying punishment. So they must allow for your rights as a person in applying punishment. And then Amendment 6, some of these are repeated before I got them out of place with the articles. There's a right to a fair and speedy trial. Amendment 7, a right to a jury for civil cases. Amendment 8, the government cannot demand excessive bail or fines. And we just talked about that, but that was Amendment 8. That was not an article. And finally, number 9, the Constitution does not include all rights of the people and the state. Okay, so it does not include all the rights of people of the state. And number 10, any power not given to the federal government belongs to the state. So there you have it. Those are the 10 articles, those are the 10 amendments which make up the Bill of Rights. And as we continue to go forward with this, realizing how old this document is, you're going to see some amendments that are in the Constitution that you probably didn't know existed. And then we'll get to some of the ones that are most noteworthy. But we're going to take a little break. And don't touch that dial, because we're going to be right back. And I'm going to continue to provide you with an education on what the Constitution is. Just remember, the Constitution is the preamble, the 7 articles, and the 27 amendments. And don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Hi, this is Rudy Howard, your independent insurance agent. I now specialize in Medicare, health insurance, and small group insurance. That number is 475-8856. Same great service, more flexible hours. Just give me a call, 475-8856.
WPTV's First Alert Weather on WPSL is brought to you by Seacoast Air Conditioning, family owned and operated on the Treasure Coast since 1982. Online at seacoastair.com. Now with a look at our forecast, here's meteorologist Jennifer Correa.
A mild evening on tap with temperatures in the low 70s around sunset under mostly clear skies. Tomorrow morning waking up to the low 60s, highs tomorrow reaching the low 80s. A copy and paste forecast on Friday, mostly sunny, mainly dry with afternoon temperatures in the low 80s. And then into the weekend, temperatures get a little warmer. We'll top out in the upper 80s Saturday and Sunday. Rain chances on the lower side with just a couple of spotty showers for Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Then we're back to the low 80s by Wednesday.
I'm WPTV First Alert meteorologist Jennifer Correa for WPSL 1590, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
Living in Florida is paradise until your AC breaks down.
Comfort crisis, don't roast, call Seacoast.
We now return to the African American scene. Once again, here's Rudy Howard.
Okay, so we went through the Bill of Rights, and we now know the Bill of Rights are the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. So let's start with Amendment 11. Citizens cannot sue states in federal court. There are some exceptions to that, but that's Amendment 11. And I welcome your thoughts. That's 340-1590. That's 340-1590. The President, Amendment 12. The President and Vice President are elected on party tickets, on a party ticket. So the President and Vice President, when they're elected associated with a party ticket. So we always see, like with the Democrats or the Republicans, as they're getting down to the end, they declare a vice president because it is required that they be elected together on a ticket. So even if there was an independent would have to declare a vice presidential candidate as they got to the final phases of an election. Now we're getting to the ones that many people know about. Amendment 13. Slavery is illegal in the United States. Now, this amendment was created in 1865. Slavery is illegal in the United States. Now, here's another important one. Amendment 14. Every person born in the United States is a citizen. An immigrant can become a naturalized citizen. And that was in 1868. That is what brought African Americans and people of color into the Constitution. Once we were determined to be persons and part of the United States, the Constitution then applied to us and all other people of color. The other famous one, okay, Amendment 15, and I want you to get this because this is real important. All U.S. male citizens have the right to vote. And it does say male. In 1870. So in 1870, it was determined a U.S. male had the right to vote. And since people of color were now citizens, that meant all people of color had the right to vote in 1870. I want to repeat that again, 1870. But it was not until the Voting Rights of 1965 that it was respected, that the constitutional amendment was respected by virtue of an additional law that had to be passed. So when people talk about the importance of abiding by the Constitution, think about the fact that in 1870, it said we could vote, and that was completely ignored. Amendment 16, it gives Congress the authority to tax income. Amendment 17, the people can elect U.S. senators. Now, this was kind of funny, and it just tells you how old this was. Amendment 18, alcohol is illegal. That amendment was passed in 1919. Can you imagine how many people would be locked up in this country if that was still a amendment that was active on the books? Can you imagine that, Cliff? Wow.
I can't. On the other hand, I can't imagine a prohibition ending on crack cocaine.
Yeah.
They can continue to prohibit that and a few other major substances that kill people. You know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
Amendment 19. All U.S. female citizens have the right to vote. And that was in 1920. Now, isn't that interesting?
Took a while, didn't it?
Yeah, it took a while. So we go back to, which amendment was that? Let's see.
17?
The original amendment was to allow the vote, allow male citizens to vote. But it took us to come down to this amendment 19 to allow women to vote. Wow. And that was in 1920. They were not allowed to vote until 1920. In 1870, it gave the right to all men to vote, but women were not allowed to vote until 1920. Sometime we've had to climb mountains. Amendment 20. The president is inaugurated in January, and Congress begins to meet in January. This amendment was established in 1933. Another funny one. Amendment 21. Alcohol is legal. Each state can make laws about making, selling, and drinking alcohol. And that was passed in 1933. So
funny, all the big time bootleggers became all the major whiskey companies and booze companies.
Yeah.
They were during Prohibition. They didn't lose any money during that time.
Yeah. There was a big market for that. In fact, there's a club in New York City, and I can't think of the name of it. And the club, this when I was a young man, it had a speakeasy. So you went in the front door, and it looked like a retail shop. And then there was a secret door you pulled open, and when you pulled it open, and you went back there, it was a dance club, and it was a great place. I had a good time there.
I've walked in on a couple poker games accidentally by just walking into a place of business that had an unlocked door, and I thought it was a legitimate place of business, but high stakes poker goes on all over the place. It's amazing.
Yeah. So that was interesting. That they make alcohol legal in 1933 after they banned it in 1919. I guess the ban was not very successful. So cooler heads prevailed, and they finally approved it again, which I think in current times, a analogous situation is with marijuana. Marijuana has been labeled as a type 1 drug, and many states now have passed legislation, like Florida, that it is okay to use it for medical reasons. But some states are making an awful lot of money by allowing marijuana to be sold to the public at large. Now, whether you like that or don't like that, I think what you have to accept, just like I think the Constitution did with alcohol, there is a cost factor that just really doesn't make a lot of sense. Marijuana is not heroin. Marijuana is not any of the other things that are cocaine, crack. It's not that. And I could say this with great confidence, and I hope you won't think ill of me, but I know grown folks my age that if marijuana was legal, they may smoke marijuana rather than drink. And contrary to what people are told, I personally, just me personally, do not know anybody that smoked marijuana and ended up doing heroin. I'm not to say that doesn't happen. I'm just saying I don't know anybody. And I was in school when there was so much smoking going on in my school. There was a cloud hanging on the floor when I went up there, and when I was a freshman, I had no idea what the heck that was. So that's my commentary. Amendment number 22. The president cannot serve for more than 2 terms. And that went into law in 1951. And you know why that was. FDR was successful in negotiating 3 terms as president, and they made sure that wouldn't happen again. And you know what? I don't know that that's a bad thing. I'm not so sure that should be applied to Congress, but I think 2 terms as a senator, that's 12 years. That's enough. That's longer than the president can serve. The president can only serve 2 4-year terms. So again, I welcome your thoughts. 340-1590. The U.S. citizens of the District of Columbia have the right to vote for president. And that was enacted in 1961. So up to that point, the citizens of D.C. had no right to vote for president. And I think the next hurdle is going to be whether D.C. gets citizenship. But we have Ken on line 1. Yes, Ken.
Hey, Rudy, how you doing?
Okay.
I'm getting pretty disgusted with you.
And so why is that?
All right. I want to talk, you're talking about amendments?
Yes.
Okay. So, 13th Amendment, abolish slavery.
Yes.
100% of the Republicans supported that. Only 23% of Democrats supported that.
That's true.
14th Amendment, free the slaves. 94% of Republicans supported that. 0 Democrats supported it.
That's true.
15th Amendment, right to vote. 100% of Republicans supported that. No Democrats supported that.
That's true.
The 19th Amendment, the right for women to vote. No Democrats supported that either. Why don't you mention that on your show?
Oh, you just did, and that's all true.
And he agreed with you too.
So
Yeah,
tell me.
You know that, but you're not talking about it, are you?
Well, I just want to ask you this. What happened?
Rudy, you are nothing but a Democratic hack.
I am?
Yes. You just support Democrats no matter what they tell you to say.
That's not true,
You're
sir.
on the Democratic plantation.
That's not true, sir.
Yes, it is.
No, it's
Why
not.
should be talking about this?
You will
You're
never,
talking
you have
about-
never, as long as you've listened to me, You have never heard me repeating Democratic talking points because I don't do that. I speak from my heart, and I speak from my experience, and I speak from my knowledge. I am not a, wait, let me finish, because you made a charge against me that I want to address.
You're not talking about it.
I am not a puppet. I am a man, an intelligent man with an independent mind who is a Democrat and a progressive. I do not stand for every single thing that Democrats and progressives believe in, but there are more things that the Democrats and the progressives believe in that I believe in. And if you were able to come up with things that I believed in the Republican Party, then I would do that too. I have been asked over the years repeatedly to join the Republican Party because people see me as a moderate. And I've said no, because frequently you make statements and come up with issues that are offensive to me. So that's why I'm a Democrat.
Rudy, you're not telling me the truth. You're not telling me the truth.
Well, what am I telling you if I'm not telling you the truth?
You just said you knew all these facts. These facts are not very complimentary to the Democratic Party, but you won't mention them on the air.
Well, I said to you, what you said was true. Now, what happened to the Republican Party? The Republican Party was an integral part of slavery being ended, and in the 1800s was an integral part to helping slaves be free. Oh, no doubt. There's no doubt about that. I have no argument with that. At that time, the Democratic Party was very racist. I would even go so far to tell you, Ken, that when I was growing up, a lot of my father's friends were Republicans, but they changed because the Republican Party changed.
Now you're not telling the truth, Rudy.
I'm not?
You're not telling the truth.
Why not? Tell me where I'm lying.
You mentioned the Civil Rights Act.
Yes.
Yes, that passed because of Republican support, not Democrat support. Not enough Democrats voted for that to pass it. Had to have the Republicans pass it.
Yes.
Yes. But you're not talking about that.
Well, you just talked about it. Wait.
Unfavorable to Democrats.
You just talked about it, and I agreed with you.
You agreed with me because I brought it up, and it's true.
Well, I said it's true. I agree with you.
But you didn't. Yeah, but you're not bringing it up, are you, Rudy?
Well, that's not the topic for
I
tonight.
mentioned here have you talked about?
That's not the topic for tonight. But I would tell you, did I say you weren't telling the truth? I said you're truthful. Now, let me tell you the other part of the truth. Strom Thurmond, who was a diehard Democrat, was one of the most racist people in the history of Congress. And those people all moved to the Republican Party. And as a result, most of the people of color moved to the Democratic Party. Is that true? Tell me, is that true?
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
Let me add something to that, Rudy.
Okay, so that's true.
Oh, his mentor, and when he died, he gave him a eulogy.
Who was his mentor?
Joe Biden said Strom Thurmond was his mentor. So did Hillary Clinton.
The question is, Was Strom Thurmond a avowed racist?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the point. So all the other stuff is not consistent with what happened. And part of the movement of the Democratic Party came with FDR, and when he came up with the Tennessee Valley Authority Act, where he provided some relief to people after the Great Depression. That was the start of it. And in the 60s, when Lyndon Johnson put together his programs that ultimately passed, there was a mass migration of the people of color from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party. Jackie Robinson was a Republican. Martin Luther King was a Republican, but this is 2023. How come you have not been able to successfully lure people of color back to your party? Shame on you.
You're talking nonsense, Rudy. You're talking nonsense. None of what you just said is true.
What I said is not true.
What you're talking about as far as the Republican Party is concerned is not true. I'm a Republican. I am not racist.
I didn't say all Republicans were racist. I didn't say that. I would never say that.
That's what
Listen, I got less than 2 minutes, Ken. I got less than 2 minutes. What I will give you, you know what? I will make my subject next week. Make sure you listen. I will talk about.
I'm not listening anymore to you, Rudy.
Okay, well, don't. I hope you will, but you have a wonderful evening, and I appreciate your phone call. And I'm going to make my show next week specifically for you. I'm going to talk about the transition of the people of color from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party. So thank you for listening. And all of you that are listening, please listen in next week. And you just got my topic, the transition of people of color from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party. God bless you. Good night and be safe. And I will see you next Wednesday right here for the African American Scene.
The African American Scene with Rudy Howard. Brought to you by independent insurance agent Rudy Howard. Archives are all over YouTube. Go to WPSLTV.com and binge watch us some Rudy Howard. We have years and years and years of his programs stashed right there for your enjoyment. This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast, webcaster to the world on Google Home, Alexa, and the TuneIn app on your smartphone.